Today I'm with Mayor Ben Stahler, and he's graciously enough allowed me to interview him today. So my first question is, how was your trip to Italy?
Oh, we had a recent trip to Italy.
Yeah.
Like so many Americans, we had plans in 2020 and in 2021, and sometimes those trips are kicked down the road like a can. And so we just recently went to. It was a safe trip, but we've been to Europe now twice since September, and so it's safe to fly over the Atlantic. Of course, today's standards are you have to test negative for COVID. You have to show your vaccination cards. And in fact, when you're in for instance, European country, even before you enter a shop, they're going to ask you for your vaccination proof. So you show it. So it was safe to travel. And places like Western Europe, you're literally walking down cobbly streets that were 2,000 years old. So you're heading down tracing the steps of Romans a couple of thousand years ago. So I had a great trip. Thank you.
What was your favorite part about that?
About that trip, probably just warm weather, because we hadn't been to that part of the country. My wife and I, sometimes we compare notes. We share a bucket list. You'll know this when you're older, but you finally get to a point where you think, if I had a wish list of 10 cool places that I've never been to, what's that look like? And then you start to prioritize. So southern Italy. So we were at the base of Mount Vesuvius, where Pompeii was buried, and we're on both sides, both coasts of Italy. So beautiful towns, a lot of history, a lot of great food, a little bit of wine. You'll know about that someday. Italians make a great wine, and pastries, and so it was just a nice week.
That sounds cool.
Thank you.
All right, so for my next question, what was your path to becoming mayor of Bellefontaine?
Well, I would tell somebody that I didn't grow up thinking I wanted to be Bellefontaine's mayor, but I did grow up in this community. So it's home for me, and went off to college. I'm a pharmacist by trade, and so I spent 35 years being a community pharmacist. About half of that was hospital, the other half was with CVS Pharmacy, and that was what my father did before me. And in fact, my son today is a pharmacist in Columbus, so it's a family tradition, I guess you might say. Politics and community involvement, maybe more importantly, was something that was always my path. So when I came back home to Bellefontaine after college, I got involved with things. It could be church groups, it could be civic groups. There are a lot of organizations in any given community that require a board of directors, and they're just volunteers that are going to help out, they're going to help make decisions, and generally it's to serve somebody else, being more concerned about others before yourself. And so that was my path. And at an early age, I think, about 29 or 30, I ran for city council. And so I served 2 terms of city council. And then following that, I was elected 4 times to the Board of Education. So I served for quite some time in Bellefontaine's Board of Education. I also served at the Career Center for 8 years, Ohio High Point. So they serve a 5-county area. Ohio Board of Educations, I was on their executive committee. Board of Elections for the county. I could probably ramble on. Anyhow, what's interesting is that what led to this is the mayor before me, and the same is true of me. We could meet today, and tomorrow you read in the paper that I've quit my job. So you can walk away from an elected position. And the mayor of Bellefontaine at the time, a young man, got a better career opportunity, and so he simply resigned. I was the chairman of the party, and so now I'm on the phone. I'm calling. I think then I had 5 people on that list, and I thought, hey, you'll be ideal, and we can just plug you in. If it's not election time, we can actually appoint you, and you can finish out the term. And I'd already retired as a pharmacist, and so these folks on the phone are saying, well, why don't you do it? And I said, well, that's not why I called you, or I wasn't thinking about that. And then I began to think about that. I began to pray about that. And I visited with my family and some of my smart friends. And they said, sure, you just retired as a pharmacist, so why not try it? That was 2014. And so now I'm in my 8th year as mayor. It's really a good fit. I enjoy it. It's completely different from being a pharmacist, but not so different from being involved with other things in the community. Since you do have a chance to cut and edit, and so I can interrupt you,
Absolutely.
go to that.
How long the path of being mayor? What is the one part of your job that you would think that people usually don't understand? Like, what's like a hidden aspect to it?
Yeah, well, even for me, when I said I'd be mayor, I didn't really understand all that entailed. Now, being on city council, I had an understanding. But so someone who becomes mayor in their community overnight becomes, if you would, a CEO of a small company. And so for Bellefontaine, there are 130 full-time associates. There are 31 police officers. There are 21 firefighters, full-time firefighter, paramedics. We have 15 departments, from engineering to parks, water, wastewater, utilities department, audit, tax, things like that. So you do become kind of the president of a company. But I knew when I came in here in 2014 that things were going well. So I didn't come in to shake anything up. There's a lot to understand about the job. You will hear from time to time that if you were elected at something tomorrow, you're going to find out that the next day after that you don't have it all figured out. So it's an on-the-job learning experience. It's a team approach to things. And I would say today, even 8 years later, the same 15 department head directors are doing their jobs. They do them well, and I let them manage their people. Now, from time to time, I do have to be involved with issues that certain associates will bring up with their working day. You become a sounding board for the community. So you get a lot of phone calls, emails, letters. Folks want to make appointments with you. So my day is generally, I found out that my day isn't all in here. We're in my office, but about half of what I'm expected to do is probably meeting with other people or being in their office. Or yesterday, I was in Columbus twice, 2 different trips, but they're meetings, they're things I'm involved with. In fact, a year from now, 2023, I'll be the president of Ohio's Mayors Association. So there's about like 800 mayors in Ohio, and we all belong to one nice club. So I have a lot of involvement away from the office. And then there are a lot of community boards. I appoint a number of people to those boards, and as well, I sit on many of those seats and have a voice, or maybe the city can help out with something. So that's probably what I found out more about the role of mayor. I knew they were busy, maybe not quite this busy.
Yeah. So what is your most important responsibility? Like, what do you feel like?
Well, I feel like it's, if you live in the community, we raise, by the way, we have the lowest income tax rate in West Central Ohio at 1.3%. But if you're working here in the community or living in the community, about 1% of what you make comes back to the city for the services that we visit about, for having nice parks and for having a police and fire department respond to you, safe drinking water. We handle the water as it comes back. The budget is almost $30 million. And so that's quite a responsibility. So it would have to go as the number one on my list is we're always watching revenue versus expenses, and you'll do the same thing with your own home budget someday. Your money coming in should exceed the money you're spending. And so we use that simple model in a very complicated formula to watch day to day, week by week, month by month, how are we doing controlling our costs and yet providing all the services within the community. So that's probably number one on my list for responsibilities.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so after being mayor for a while, what is some advice you'd like to have had before you became mayor? That would have helped you greatly along the way.
Yeah, and it probably wasn't as important as sharing some of those aspects that I told you learn on the job, but I think you come in with the right characteristics. And so I don't think it matters whether you're a man or woman. It doesn't matter what church you might go to or some of your beliefs, but it does matter that you have a servant's heart, that you understand that while this is a job, the job is to provide services for the community. You should be empathetic, you should be compassionate, and you try to understand, even if you don't know somebody, walk a day in their shoes. What's it like? So you have to listen sometimes to all of what they're saying, Oftentimes, we will get phone calls, we'll get someone visiting the office, and they're upset. They are angry. And the difference is, I want to listen to everything they're saying, but imagine if you're me, and about 10 seconds into the conversation, you realize they're not in the right office. You're yelling at me, but this isn't something I have any control over. It could be the court system. It could be that you live outside of Bellefontaine, and your issues may be in Logan County. Your issue could be with the county courthouse, which is a beautiful 1870s structure in the middle of Bellefontaine, but it's actually a county property. I have nothing to do with the building. I don't control county commissioners. We work well together. So I like to think that when someone knocks at the door and they have an issue, they have a problem, that there's no wrong door. So I'm going to listen to them because they don't want you to cut them off in the middle of a passionate speech they've probably prepared. So I listen to them, and then I try to find a nice way to say, I get it, I would feel the same way. However, as mayor, I can't help you, but I don't want you to leave the office until I hook you up with the right phone number, a person, or somebody, so that when you tell this story again, it is the right office, the right door. And so those are kind of funny. Sometimes I chuckle, not laughing at them, but maybe after I consider what they were just sometimes screaming about, it had nothing to do with me. But people will think that the mayor of a community is the end-all to all situations. It could be a real estate issue. It could be an issue, I hate my neighbor. And we just, you sense that there's a battle going on, but now we have to sit back and look at the ordinances, the laws in our community, and has someone broken a law, or you guys just aren't getting along? You're not playing well together. So,
how often does that usually happen? Is it like a weekly thing, or?
It's weekly. Yeah, it's weekly. In fact, the iPhone, well, that's how you reached me. But if someone gets my number, all of a sudden they're texting me, and that's fine. Facebook, I think I have the maximum allowable Facebook friends. Which they cut you off at about 5,000. I think you can pay to have more, but anyhow, I'm maxed out. And so people can reach me through Facebook Messenger. I don't necessarily know them, but I put on that hat. I'm empathetic. I read what they have to say. Here's what I'll never do. I will never, this is a double negative, I'll never not reply. All right? I'm always going to reply. Sometimes it's not what they want to hear, because what they're yelling about, actually, the right things were all happening. It's just upsetting. Sometimes people will meet with me, and then I have to let them know that what you're upset about is still legitimate. I get it. I see why you're upset. So that's that.
Yeah. So how do you manage your time with like all this? Does it like you can have like you could probably like schedule to your day, I'm sure, and then just like, somebody just comes in and they're upset about something.
It's complicated, and yet it is as simple, again, as our little world on an iPhone. So I rely on my calendar to the extent that if I drive away from my home and I have a full day and it's not with me, like a kid, I have to go back home and get it. Or if my wife's at home, she's very busy, but if she can drop it off at the office, because I don't want to forget something. So sometimes I'll keep a written calendar. I'm on a desk blotter that has some important notes. I have a secretary, so if you miss me at the office because I'm somewhere else, she'll take your name and phone number. She'll schedule some things, but usually she doesn't know all my schedule. There's a city manager, and then the three of us share a calendar. So through the computer age of technology, we can see what each other has on the calendar. Sometimes that means I won't schedule something if I need other people in that same meeting. And oftentimes I do, so I don't waste someone's time. So I might need the city engineer in the office, or the parks director, or the chief of police, or one of our firefighters, paramedics, my city manager. So oftentimes I try to make your visit as effective as possible. And so I'll bring several people in. Then we listen to what you wanted to ask or tell us, and off we go. But it's complicated, but I would say somehow I'm doing it right because I don't miss many appointments. And boy, is that embarrassing. You know, if someone calls or texts you and said, "Oh, you forgot about our meeting," I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I go backwards and I say, how did I miss that? And so It's as simple as if I want to remember, and I'm sitting here writing some notes. Do you like that pretty colors? But every now and then someone likes getting a note from the mayor that says "attaboy" or "well done, girls volleyball player," or so someone that has something noteworthy. So I'll follow the news locally, and so that's Peak of Ohio and the Examiner. And I see that something cool happened in somebody's life, I'll write them a note.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I have to make myself notes, but it's working out pretty good so far. And you know what? We're all human. So if I haven't arranged something, I had to change a few appointments for Monday because a pretty important one came in. It's the Lieutenant Governor. He's at TRC. There's a very cool announcement. I even had to sign a confidentiality waiver so that I wouldn't come home and then tell what I. So sometimes you're in on some pretty cool stuff before it's public. And that was worthy of moving 2 other people's meetings. Their understanding, I didn't tell them why, but if you don't tell them, I won't tell them. And you just rearrange schedules, and I oftentimes have to do that. It's like going to the dentist or a doctor. Something happens, you just have to go to the next opening on the schedule. So,
I always find hearing about people's scheduling is cool because like they have so much more going on than me, but like they somehow make it all work.
And so I'll use my own calendar. For instance, if you said to me, will you give me a call tomorrow morning at 10? Well, tomorrow isn't a weekday, so I'm not down here at the office. But I go in as an appointment, and I type at 10 a.m. call Ephraim, and so that's it. And then the night before, I just look at what's tomorrow, and then it's like having a meeting with my wife, who's just as busy, and we talk about how our schedules overlap, and we leave some time for a nice walk or fun with friends or something like that. So my life's pretty scheduled, and yet.
Question, if I can, how
Yes.
does it work with vacation and everything else? Because you obviously love to travel with your duties here.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, again, turn to Exhibit A, the iPhone. So you asked how was my week in Italy, and actually most people wouldn't know I was in Italy. However, I shared that on social media. So I shared some cool pictures of places, and people like to travel with you. But if I'm away from town, it's important that my secretary and city manager, and I'll tell my 15 department heads, but things will run very smoothly without me necessarily being sitting at this desk. So I won't come lock myself to this desk. So I can answer all my emails, reply to all my texts, and even if I'm in Greece, my phone will ring. For a few extra dollars, Verizon allows you to just make calls, endless calls, and text and data in another country. And so most people don't. Now the funny thing is the people that I want to know about that have to realize if I'm in Italy, like you asked about, I'm 7 hours ahead. So if you call me at 6 p.m., it's now middle of night and I'm sleeping. So I have to manage those. And then, let's see, how would we do that? So over there at dinner time, it's just about late morning here. And so that's when I'll just break away from some tour or something, and I'll sit in a coffee shop, and I can catch up my entire day without people. And sometimes I'll get a phone call, and I'm just totally away from the office. I don't have to tell them where I am. But no, so there is freedom to get away, and you can manage the city from remotely. You don't have to be sitting behind a desk or standing out in front of the municipal building. So I've got a team that helps me with that.
That's cool. Managing from abroad.
Yeah, you actually can. And so do people much more important than I. They don't have to be in their office to have a team that does the day-to-days. And then when things rise to a certain level, they can reach you in a minute's notice. And it's that 1 in a million that if I'm out of state and a tornado rips through here and all of a sudden there are buildings down and we've lost power, well, I need to be able to turn around on a dime and start home. If I'm in Italy, I'm going to see you in 4 days. It just depends. But I've been lucky that the times that I'm away from the office or even away from my own home, we haven't had major occurrences. So it's a luxury to be right here dealing with it on a day-to-day with everybody else.
Yeah, sure. All right, so for one of my last questions, What do you hope to accomplish within the next few years?
Some of our goals continue to be, we want to build our community to be larger. I would share with you that the 2020 census, we just finally got those numbers because it was happening during COVID. The community grew by 5.6%. Most of Logan County did not grow, but because we grew at a healthy rate, the county grew by 0.6%, but we carried it on our backs. But we have the capability to build more homes because we're the county seat, we're the capital of Logan County. Our neighbors to the north, Hardin County, Shelby County, Champaign County, all got smaller in that 10-year period. And so it's important for this office to always be focused on how can we develop our town. If you don't build or encourage building of new homes, and that's homes for everybody. They need to be affordable, and you also need to have big, beautiful homes, and so you want something for everybody. And so we're focused always on more opportunities to live here, because again, that 1%, if we're growing our community, there's a little more revenue to support those services. We focus on workforce issues. If you went into major manufacturers, they've all got openings. They're managing right now, but coming out of COVID now, we're on the backside of that. We're still dealing with workforce issues, employment issues that could even be about benefits and their wage. And so we're at the table with folks to try to encourage that the employment in our area is attractive. We want someone who's 16 to want to come back to West Central Ohio and live. Even if it's in Raymond, it's in a small town where you know folks, but you're not that far from Columbus, you're not that far from Bellefontaine or Marion or where have you. And so instead of having you run off to some really cool San Antonio or Chattanooga or Atlanta, some city that's really attracting 20-somethings. So it's important for us. We were just recognized, by the way, a week ago for our efforts to revitalize our downtown. And so the restaurants that we have, the shops that we have, the coffee shops, the amenities, connectivity, again, back to the phone, but someone your age says, I need to live in a place that's connected. I can't live maybe out in the country, like maybe my mom and dad, when they were first married, they thought, let's get a quiet home out in the country. They weren't worried about being connected to the World Wide Web. So we worry about connectivity, housing, workforce, and continuing to provide top-level services. We want someone who lives in our town to say, we have great schools, we have a great hospital, we have access to health care, beautiful parks. We have 17 parks and just east of town, so it's outside of our city limits, but it's our city park. It's 450 acres. It's Ohio's largest city park. It's called Myra Preserve. And so we've got a lot to continue to work on, and so we're always asking the question, how can we provide that service or be just a little bit better and keep people happy?